Tune into Nice Radio every Saturday at 7:30 a.m. for A View from the Outside, hosted by Brereton Horne. A View from the Outside takes a look at key issues affecting St Vincent and the Grenadines and gives a global perspective on how these issues are viewed. Host Brereton Horne will examine a variety of topics to enlighten, stimulate debate, and explore solutions. Hear the facts, hear the real-life stories, hear A View from the Outside. Join Brereton Horne at 7:30 a.m. every Saturday on Nice Radio for A View from the Outside.
This society needs a spectacle. It might help us to see some need.
On A View from the Outside this week being the 27th of November 2021, we look at Broken, B-R-O-K-E-N, Broken, with the view being that the talk throughout St Vincent and the Grenadines, around the Caribbean and other countries around the world, is that the criminal justice system in St Vincent and the Grenadines is broken. The Collins Dictionary defines broken simply as not functioning. Therefore, when it is said that the criminal justice system in St Vincent and the Grenadines is broken, it means that there are concerns about whether the system is functioning. It means that the voices are getting louder about what is dispensed as justice, criminal justice, in the country. Criminal justice refers to the process by which criminals are made to pay the price for crimes which they have committed. It is with that in mind that we, here on A View from the Outside, deal with this topic today. On the 3rd of March 2016, a senior judge at the Caribbean Court of Justice, the then Justice Adrian Saunders, while addressing an audience in Kingstown, St Vincent and the Grenadines, is quoted as having said that, and I quote, "It would probably be a fair characterization to say that in most, if not all of our states today, the criminal justice system is broken," unquote. Since then, Justice Saunders has gone on to become the head of the Caribbean Court of Justice and now has the position of the Chief Justice of the Caribbean Court of Justice. It was 2016, more than 5 years ago now, when Justice Saunders made that observation. And for those who remember, there were deep conversations around the country at that time that St Vincent and the Grenadines is one of the countries referred to by Justice Saunders where the criminal justice system is indeed broken. 5 years on, and there are many who say that rather than getting better, the criminal justice system in St Vincent and the Grenadines remains broken. And in fact, there are many who believe that things have worsened significantly since then. Many say that the recent conclusion of the case against the defendants, Government Senator and Deputy Speaker of the House of Parliament, Ashel Morgan, and Kareem Nelson, the Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, point to the very issue of a broken criminal justice system in the country. For context, it is necessary to outline that the complainant in the case, Cornelius John, accused the defendants of having trespassed on his private property and beat him, shot him in the leg, and threatened him before they left the scene and left him on the ground, bleeding and helpless. Many would remember that it was not until weeks later, and certainly not before a public outcry, that the police conducted what many refer to as a sham investigation. The case concluded unceremoniously on the 18th of November 2021, when the magistrate upheld submissions of no case to answer made by each of the lawyers on behalf of the two defendants. By virtue of the decision of the magistrate, the defendants walked free from the court. That decision has widened many wounds in the country and beyond, and many are left asking, who shot Cornelius John and why? And which criminal or criminals would be made to pay the price for crimes which were committed against Cornelius John? That decision has intensified the debate and widened the perception that justice in St Vincent and the Grenadines has two faces. One face for those well connected to the ruling regime and another face for others. That decision has caused many to say that not only was the investigation a sham, but that the actual trial itself was a sham also. That decision has left many perplexed and afraid and asking how safe are Vincentians, even in the sanctity of their own homes. That decision has led many to question the role of the Minister of National Security in the country. That decision has led many to ask whether vigilante justice is now sanctioned in St Vincent and the Grenadines. That entire case has magnified how broken the criminal justice system is in the country. Right from the outset, the police investigation has been called into scrutiny and faces much criticism pertaining to the initial response and investigation, and also to the sloppiness of the investigation itself. The Prime Minister and Minister of National Security has been widely criticized for his seeming interference and his comments following the incident when he said that the senator called and told him about it. Many believe that he tried to silence Vincentians by telling them to shut up about the matter, and there are many who question whether his actions were a perversion of justice. There are many who believe also that the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP, has a great deal to answer for. Many say that they were tardy in the way the witnesses were secured, or not, as the case may be, to go to court. And many say that the charges which were laid against the defendants were wholly deficient. So, the case is concluded, and the question is being asked whether the office of the DPP, or the DPP herself, who has played a visible role in the case, will launch an appeal against the decision of the magistrates. In St Vincent and the Grenadines, it is not unheard of for the DPP to appeal against decisions of the magistrate. You will remember that when Horne Graham was tried by the regime for sedition back in 2006 for comments which he made at a public meeting, the then Chief Magistrate, Simon Churaman, dismissed the case against him on a submission of no case to answer by his lawyer. You will remember also that the DPP appealed that decision and that Mr. Graham won on appeal in the Caribbean Court of Appeal. Of course, there is also the ongoing case against Lizette King, which the DPP is currently appealing. In that case, the Chief Magistrate, Rashani Brown, upheld a submission of no case to answer made on behalf of Lizette King, and she ruled that the prosecution brought against Lizette King is an abuse of process. So, it is clear that there is evidence and that there are examples to show that the DPP in St Vincent and the Grenadines is not shy to appeal decisions made by the magistrate. That being the case, the questions abound about whether the DPP will appeal the case against Senator Ashel Morgan and Assistant DPP Karim Nelson. The observation is made that time is running out to lodge any such appeal. Speculations are rife about whether appeals by the DPP are lodged only against decisions in which the regime has a vested interest. There is speculation also about whether the office of the DPP is hesitant or reluctant to lodge an appeal for fear that it will go in favor of Cornelius John, which in effect will result in the perpetrators facing the criminal justice system once more. Vincentians, the Caribbean, and the rest of the world are waiting on the DPP's decision on whether there will be an appeal. One of the most troubling things about the Ashel Morgan Karim Nelson case is that it brings into sharp focus that those involved in lawmaking and in the administration of law in the country are at the forefront of such allegations. It is also troubling that, on the face of it, many believe that the process was manipulated and corrupted throughout in order to protect the well-connected, and thus continuing to feed the belief that justice indeed has two faces in St Vincent and the Grenadines. Whilst we, here on A View from the Outside, have focused principally on the Ashel Morgan Karim Nelson case to highlight the notion that the criminal justice system is broken in St Vincent and the Grenadines, there is no doubt that there are many other cases which can be thrust into the spotlight to support the point. The Prime Minister was accused of having raped and sexually assaulted a female police officer guarding him. It is public knowledge that a proper police investigation was all but non-existent, and that it had to take a private prosecution to get the case into the criminal justice system. It is also public knowledge that the DPP intervened and stopped the case from going into the courtroom, thus making the phrase or the term noli prosequi a household phrase in St Vincent and the Grenadines. There is also the example of the case pertaining to Douglas Dougie de Freitas, who was charged with causing alarm on the day after the elections of December 9th, 2015. His case is still languishing in the court, and justice is still to be dispensed. There are many others who are in a similar position as Douglas Dougie de Freitas, where they just cannot get their case heard. Many say that they simply cannot get justice in the country. The case of Yogi Farrell highlights one of the gravest forms of injustice meted out to anyone in the country. Her case continues to show how she was crushed and destroyed by the might of the establishment and the agents and enablers of the regime. Such destruction was done with blatant audacity for all to see. Discussions are rife that it is simply not right for one section of the society to always be on tenterhooks, wondering why justice is proving so elusive for them. With time against us, we, on A View from the Outside, now encourage you to identify those cases which you know point to the fact that the criminal justice system in St Vincent and the Grenadines is broken. Identify them and discuss them with your family and others in your communities. Organize petitions and bombard your parliamentary representatives with requests to fix the broken system. Until you make that demand, the broken system will continue and possibly get worse. And who knows, you may well be the next victim. If you have come to the decision that the regime is incapable of fixing the broken system. Take steps to ensure that you elect those who you believe will fix the system for the entire country. Remove those from office who you are aware have contributed to the broken system and to a worsening system. Vote them out if you must. Bear in mind that the beneficiaries of a system cannot be expected to change it. Things cannot be allowed to continue like this in St Vincent and the Grenadines. Things cannot be allowed to continue down that slippery slope. Vincentians, take steps now to halt it. As you do that, we encourage you to digest the words of Bryan Stevenson, an American lawyer and social activist, who said, and I quote, "You ultimately judge the civility of a society not by how it treats the rich, the powerful, the protected, and the highly esteemed, but by how it treats the poor, the disfavored, and disadvantaged." Unquote. Justin and all of the listeners, until next week, this is Brereton Horne with a reminder to send your feedback as usual to aviewfromtheoutside@hotmail.com. We also invite you to visit and like our Facebook page at A View From The Outside and to subscribe to our YouTube channel at JMB Horne. Have a pleasant Saturday all, have a wonderful Sunday, and have a productive week ahead, where steps are taken to put a halt to the broken criminal justice system in the country.